Welcome back to the Taiwanology podcast. This is your host, Kwangyin from CommonWealth magazine in Taipei. We are honored today to have a very special guest with us in the studio, Mr. Gunter Pauli. He is a visionary entrepreneur, author, and thought leader behind the concepts of zero emissions and the blue economy. He is currently the co-founder of Porima and a host of initiatives including Blue Innovations in Switzerland. Gunter has been named, this is very interesting, both the Steve Jobs of sustainability and the Che Guevara of sustainability. I will for sure ask him what this is about later in the show. So this is Gunter's, I don't know how many times in Taiwan. I think he's a very close friend with a lot of Taiwanese entrepreneurs, including Stan Shih, the founder of Acer Group, which is also, I guess, why he is in Taiwan this time. Gunter's journey began in the mid-1980s when he dared to imagine an industrial system with zero emissions, an idea that seemed nearly utopian at the time. Then in 2009, he introduced the concept blue economy, a radical vision of using what we have where we are to create sustainable and resilient societies. His work has reshaped industries and inspired movements that challenge the status quo of our world. Why do we have Gunter today? Because as floods and wildfires spread across the world, the issue of climate emergency really has taken center stage in global discussions, like we have witnessed during COP29, the very critical UNFCCC climate summit in Baku, Azerbaijan, just a few weeks ago. In today's conversation, we'll explore how Gunter's groundbreaking ideas evolved, his transformative Porima project, and what lies ahead for the future of sustainable innovation. Welcome to the studio, Gunter.
Thank you very much for the invitation. What a pleasure to be back at CommonWealth.
Well, so you have been to CommonWealth before?
Well, CommonWealth is my publisher, so CommonWealth has published 2 of my books in the past. So this is, of course, an honor to be back and to meet with the people that made my ideas known in Taiwan.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is a homecoming trip. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Right. And tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, when I tried to introduce you, I was struggling to pick and choose from 2,000 pages of your accomplishments. But how did you start?
Well, I started really as a young entrepreneur who was very eager, graduating from university to be more than an employee of a multinational corporation. Actually, one of my mentors told me that you're such a free mind, you're such an independent thinker, you will perish even when they're offering you the greatest platform for career in a multinational corporation.
But why did they say that? What was it about you that made you a maverick at school?
Well, I am a product of the 70s. So I'm not a product of the 60s. The 60s was the student revolution. I am the first, let's say, classes at university where the students were claiming that we want better teachers, we want better professors, we want to learn more, and we want to become entrepreneurs. We want to become the change agents. In the 60s, that was the age of my brother, was the age that they rejected society. They wanted to have nothing to do. They wouldn't flower power and smoke pot and,
The beatniks.
So just do life outside of what society is proposing. Where I was, the student leader, I was elected as the student leader in my country, and I stood up against exactly the beatniks, and I said, I will want to be everyone here to be entrepreneur. Everyone will be a positive change agent, and our change will come from entrepreneurship and not from revolutions.
Right. So you decided at the time to be part of the society, but at the same time remake it.
Well, I could still be a nuisance because, it's like the famous Joseph Schumpeter has said, it's destructive creativity. I'm very destructive because I'm proposing business models that are not the standard business model, not the mainstream model. But that's exactly what innovation is all about. You have to bring something new. Capital is not created unless you have a very good novel idea to bring to the market. And the entrepreneur is the one who has the capacity to take the idea and put it into a sphere of reality.
Mm-hmm. What was your first entrepreneurial pursuit?
Well, the first formal entrepreneurial pursuit was that I started importing beer from Belgium in Japan. And the innovation was that I only sold beer that was produced at monasteries. So they were made by the monks. And these beers, they were made by the monks for 700 years in the same way.
I thought all beers from Belgium were made by the monks. No?
No, well, not all, but
okay.
the origin.
And the good ones.
Well, the best ones.
Yeah, that's true.
So the beer I sold in Japan, not as a beer, but a product of culture. And that was very innovative because beer always presented, certainly in the 70s and the 80s, it's the macho man who's drinking beer with his buddies and, it is showing off, how good we are. And of course, in the outside or having fun together in the bars or in the clubs, I was presenting beer as a cultural product. It was an extreme success. It was so successful that I couldn't get enough beer from the monks because the monks, they told me, they just make the beer as a side product. Their main one is prayers. And of course, they weren't ready to give up prayers to give me more beer.
No, that's true. They're not going to expand their capacity to cater to Japanese consumers. So why Japan? Why was your first market Japan?
Well, because the government of Belgium, since I was a very good student, gave me a scholarship. And the scholarship was that I could go and live for 6 months at the government's expense, live and work at an embassy, and explore a new country where I could perhaps build up a future. And so in the end, it became Japan. So I was sent by my country to Japan to learn to know.
And where were you in Japan?
So, I was so privileged to be at the Belgian embassy, an embassy in Tokyo. Embassies still today are very highly regarded. And so I could look at Japan from a very unique position. I had access to everyone. You had access to, you could visit a lot and discover, and you could propose things that maybe everyone would say that's a bit crazy. But in Japan, he comes from the embassy, this is serious, So I had a listener, and the listener was an attentive listener and a participative listener and keen to help me make come true what I thought were the new ideas. For example, and this turned to be one of the largest first investments I secured in Japan, is that I realized Belgium had 3 Nobel laureates in chemistry. And on the other hand, we had several small but very solid pharmaceutical companies and chemical companies, but no one in Japan seemed to know them. So I told my friends in Belgium, let's bring the 3 Nobel laureates over. Let's organize a little conference. We invite 20, 30 people to listen to 3 Nobel laureates. And of course, we'll talk about chemistry and pharmaceuticals after the conference is over. And the result is that within 2 years, we built 2 factories.
Huh.
And this is what we needed to do.
For the pharma.
A shift of the thinking of how do I get my message across? Because if you're a small Belgian company, how can you impose yourself to broad media in Japan? It doesn't work. But 3 Nobel laureates, they get all attention. And so I needed to shift the marketing and the communication strategy of these companies so that they would actually have a vehicle that their good message could come across as a credible message.
And did you make the Nobel laureates sell beer?
No, but I had them drink beer and I took a picture of that.
Right, you should have done that. I think that would make the beer even more popular in Japan. So how did you go from importing Belgian beer to Japan to inventor of zero emissions?
Well, I was always very close to the Club of Rome. I became a member of the Club of Rome, this club of 100 people that look at the future, that identify major trends. And in 1985, I had my hands on the first report of the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change. And I thought, wow, we're going to have climate change. And I looked at all the hypotheses they were presenting, and I said, my business has to be zero emissions. It was so obvious to me as an entrepreneur that you can't have industries. I had just gone through the process of building 2 factories in Japan, and I knew that there was a lot of waste going up in the air, a lot of waste going into the water. We had wastewater treatment plants, we had filtration systems on the incineration, but I knew that we were definitely polluting.
But why would that report have so much impact on you? Because the report has just come out. There must have been a lot of skepticism around it. And so why did you believe that?
I have a philosophy in life which says analysis paralysis. You analyze too much, you do nothing. This is the problem of modern day society. We analyze everything. And as a result, climate change doesn't get tackled because we analyze all the problems, but we don't do anything about it. So I'm a doer. I focus on doing. And so when I read a report, I only needed a couple minutes to realize that the only way for my industries in the future to be outcompeting my big competitors was that I was going to have a unique selling proposition. And that was, I don't waste, I have no pollution, I have no wastewater, and my product is of a great quality. And that became my unique selling proposition.
Right. So, and then you went on to publish the book Zero Emissions in 1986. That was your first book.
Well, I published the book in 86, but that was based on my experience of being able to visualize that this was not just a good idea. I could already visualize the kind of industries and the design of the factory. So indeed, I published the book in 86, but in 92, I inaugurated the first zero emissions factory in the world.
I see.
So for the first time ever, there was a manufacturing industry with inputs coming from the outside, processing on the inside, and nothing going to the outside. So I had no wastewater, I had nothing in the air, I had no solid waste. I designed the factory to be zero waste and zero emissions. And whereas I had to recognize that this was double the cost of a normal factory, it actually paid for my marketing budget forever. So if I was in the fast-moving consumer goods, so I was selling detergents, and as a result, I had my fast-moving consumer goods product range, which normally needs about 30% investment in marketing and communications. I had zero.
You saved that.
And by having that as zero, but I created a brand which became the number one and is still a number one brand in the green marketing. So by creating a brand, of course, I was able to outcompete not only my competitors, who are big multinational corporations, but on top of that, I could get on the shelf in supermarkets without having to pay the famous slotting fees. Normally, when you go in a supermarket, you have to pay a price to be on the shelf.
Right.
I didn't have to pay because I was the zero emissions factory.
Okay.
I was so popular in the media because I had a green roof. My roof was the biggest grass roof ever on an industrial building. And so everyone recognized me from the green grass roof. And by having that very high brand recognition and that very high recognition of the concept of the zero emissions factory, I was actually sucked into the supermarket's shelves.
They all want your products.
Because the customers were saying, where is that?
Okay.
As a result, I could compete on price on the supermarket shelves against all the big brands.
It's the earliest green premium that...
Well, but they didn't have to pay a premium.
Okay.
So the key thing was that my products got on the shelves without a premium price because I was only allowing the sale of a full container paid 1 month cash in advance. The distribution system didn't do that.
Right. No.
But when Sainsbury, and you always have to have one that breaks the ranks, Sainsbury, the owning family, the Sainsbury family, decided that they were going to have this product on the shelf, whatever the conditions were. And as a result, I could say, well, Sainsbury, I didn't pay slotting fees. I didn't have to agree on a marketing
And
campaign.
everybody-
No coupons to be done, only payment 1 month in advance, straight delivery, no intermediaries, no logistics. And so as a result, my margins were so attractive.
Very good. Is that factory still running?
Yeah, still running. It's been purchased by a multinational, of course.
Where is it?
It's in Belgium.
Oh, okay.
It's north of Antwerp, Belgium. But the key is that it gave me the chance to really demonstrate that you can set what was considered impossible standards.
Right.
You know, it was considered this can't be done. I mean, zero emissions.
Yeah. I feel that you're really a pioneer because you said that was built in 1992. So that's more than 20 years ago. And I think people in Taiwan, there's
32
still
years ago.
32 years. Wow. Okay. My math. Okay. 32 years ago. Right. So I think there's still people in Taiwan who are saying, zero emissions is it's impossible. It's too expensive. They should all refer back to your book and your factory to find out a living, breathing example of that. Yeah. But then you went on to publish another book called Blue Economy. What is that about and what's so different from zero emissions?
So zero emissions was really a vision statement. It was saying that, look, you know, this is how far we can go. And 6 years later, I could say, and this is what I've done. This is one case. I became really a reference entrepreneur in the sustainability world, with Anita Roddick from The Body Shop and Ben Cohen from Ben & Jerry's Ice Creams. We were the trio that were kind of leading in the world this novel business. Business with a purpose, not just business for the money.
I'm sad about The Body Shop. I like the brand.
I like the brand, but they're not there anymore. I mean, it's gone.
Yeah, that's sad. But Ben and Jerry is very much alive.
They're there, but they're owned by Unilever. But Unilever may spin them off soon, I heard. So there is an opportunity perhaps again.
Good.
The key, though, is that I was frustrated with a very slow adoption of this model. And when Japan had become the host of COP3, the COP of the Kyoto Protocol for 1997, Japan approached me with the United Nations and said, would you like to help prepare the COP3?
Oh.
So I jumped on this. This was a unique opportunity to be in an academic environment surrounded by thousands of scientists. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you never have this access. That is way too expensive. So for 3 years, I helped prepare for COP3.
And you were
Kyoto
invited
Protocol.
because of you imported Belgian beer to Japan?
No, that's the unofficial reason. The official reason is, of course, that I had proven
The zero emissions factory.
is competitive. So this was the key. It's not that you've proven technically that it can be done. I had proven that I could take market share and I could beat the standard on the market. So that was very attractive for a Japanese competitive mindset. So when I was there, in the end, Al Gore, the Vice President of the United States, and the European Union decided that they were not going to go for zero emissions, but they would do carbon credits. They would do certificates and the trading of certificates. So my proposals I'd been working on for 3 years were dumped in a fortnight.
Oh.
I decided to pursue those great ideas and I created a platform for entrepreneurship and I started implementing one project after the other. It was an entrepreneurial bonanza. When I had implemented already 100 projects.
Can you give us one example of a project?
Yeah, a Taiwanese example, stone paper. I mean, can we use the waste dust of a mine, blend it as fine dust with a polymer and make a paper that does not need any water, doesn't cut a tree, and that can be recycled forever. So that is a product that I describe. I've participated and supported this initiative, which today has led to the creation of 4 factories in China. So I look at 100 of these examples and I said, my God, what I did is not the technology innovation. I changed the business model. And so the idea and the philosophy of zero emissions, I realized with 100 cases before me, had become a new business model. So the blue economy became the description of the business models that I had been implementing. So it was a very hands-on, very direct message of, hey guys, in 92 I set up 1 factory and this was an exception to the rule, but now I have 100 industries that I have been actively participating in growing. And you industry, you economic world, you policymakers, you better be prepared.
Right.
Because there's so many resources that are left unused, and we're always being told that there's not enough resources, there's not enough material, there is a shortage. And I said, absolutely not. And the one area that I put my finger on was to say 5% of GDP of the world comes from the ocean, but it's 70% of our Earth. So if our Earth is 70%, what potential do we have if we're going to earn as much and generate as much value with what we have in the sea as what we have on Earth? And the blue economy was born.
Okay, so the book Blue Economy is like a collection of testimonies of how businesses can be sustainable. It can be done, and it's doable technically and can also be successful commercially.
That's the key. You're competitive. Actually, the goal on the market is not to compete. The goal on the market is to outcompete. I mean, you don't want to be just like everyone else. You want to be better. Mm-hmm. That is the real goal of a competitive market that we have. So I succeeded in demonstrating, not with 1 case, but in 2 cases, so 100 cases. And as a result, all of a sudden people said, the ones who liked me, they said, oh, but you like Steve Jobs, you know, you start designing a product and products
so
and products.
That's how you
products.
got that nickname, the Steve Jobs, right?
So I was named by those who really liked very, you know, if you drink a cup of coffee, I showed that with the waste of the coffee, which is 99.8%, that you can use that to farm mushrooms. And the waste of the mushrooms is great to actually feed it to your chickens. And the chickens will give me an egg. So I demonstrated that you can have coffee, mushrooms, chickens, and eggs.
A new ecosystem.
And today we have 6,000 farms around the world to do that. So it was not like, oh, scientifically it's been proven it works. No, we got 6,000 farms.
Then why do they call you the Che Guevara of sustainability?
Oh, that are the ones who don't like me. You know, I never carried a gun. I usually don't grow a wild beard. So I don't know why the Che Guevara, but it is indeed the Che Guevara, for those who know Che Guevara a little bit better, is that he was a medical doctor. And he was very, very disappointed with the poverty in Latin America. And he really wanted to change the system. In the end, he decided to take up arms. But his original purpose was not to kill and to fight.
So actually both nicknames kind of fit, I would say, in a way.
They fit, and I accept it's decided by a third person, so they publish it in their magazines or newspapers. But to me, what is important is we do need to redesign the business model.
Right.
More important than to redesign the technology.
So, we're going to take a short break. And after that, we're going to ask Gunter about his latest project, which is called Porima, and it involves a very special boat. Welcome back to Taiwanology. This is Liu Guangyin, your host. And we have in our studio today Mr. Gunter Pauli. Tell us why you are in Taiwan this time and also its connection to your latest project.
I came the first time to Taiwan in 1983. The JCI, the Junior Chamber International, gave an award to 10 individuals that they considered to be very promising persons. And so here I was on stage in Taiwan receiving the award for my initiatives in Japan. And next to me was a man called Shih. And so I learned to know Stan for holding an award together.
Okay.
He was 39, I was 27. And he was leading a company called Multitech, not yet Acer.
Oh.
And so I learned to know Stan, and we had fantastic discussions. Fantastic discussions in the sense that he told me he didn't believe zero emissions was ever possible. He told me.
Okay.
And I love it when people say that because it gives me a chance to prove them they're wrong. There's nothing better than getting a chance to say that, well, you think so. Of course, proving them wrong took me 30 years. It took a long time. But today, Stan is a great ally because he thinks that indeed zero emissions is not only a goal, it is the way we have to go forward with industry.
When did he change his mind?
The concrete examples. He's an investor, he is an entrepreneur, he's a manager of a big conglomerate. He's gone through ups and lows. And as a result, when he sees that things are put in practice, I took Stan, for example, to Tainan to learn to know what is a stone paper factory. I mean, this is zero emissions. You really take dust from mines and you turn it into something that is valued $2,000 a ton. The dust in the air is a pollutant. Now we turn it into a product with a sales price. So for me, the opportunity to exchange with Stan, so I came to Taiwan once a year, twice a year. We would have a meeting. We would go out and eat vegetarian. And we would have very fruitful discussions. And 2 years ago, I decided to actually write a small book about our 40 years of friendship. It's the arts, it's the nature, it's the technology. I mean, what did we learn over these 40 years? And in the margin of those discussions, I described that I was doing with this ship. And he said, oh, you should bring that ship to Taiwan. I said, yeah, maybe I should. And as the discussion emerged, he really showed me that Taiwan has a unique supply chain for all the technology components of the ship. So I was very adamant. A ship in the future is not a ship. It's 20% ship and 80% technology. And Stan said, we'll deal with the ship as it needs to be dealt with, but I can contribute to your business model by turning the supply chain into the most efficient supply chain for all the technologies you want to have on board.
Right.
And that's how the discussion started.
Right. What's your idea of a ship and why do you want to build a ship?
Well, first of all, shipping is the most polluting industry in the world. Ships pollute more than airplanes, and no one stops and thinks about it. So I am someone who absolutely don't like to criticize what is wrong. If I see something wrong, I need to create the right.
A solution.
And so if I don't do that, I have no right to debate the errors of the past. So with Stan, we really put it into a supply chain model. Before, I was in a demonstration model. I was in an experimental model. So I wanted to prove that it was possible to go around the world. I want to demonstrate you had hydrogen with robotics and artificial intelligence.
So tell us a little bit about the boat. How is it designed? What's the purpose of this boat?
Originally, it had one purpose. Prove to the world we can go around sailing with solar energy only. And that's what we did.
Solar energy.
So the team that got together in 2008 really just put their mind together and said, in order to go around the world, we need 550 square meters of solar panels. We need this, and this. And they did it. They went around the world 2010, 2012. But when they came back, the whole observation was, yes, but it took 2 years. Who has 2 years? So another team got together, and we really focused on what are the technologies we can integrate to do it in 6 months instead of 2 years. And that was hydrogen on board. So it's a 33-meter catamaran. It is a 24-meter wide catamaran, which is very unique. It looks like a spaceship. It looks like an F-35 fighter landing on the water. It doesn't look at all like a ship.
So when you said hydrogen, do you mean fuel cell or?
So we take seawater.
Okay.
We clean the seawater, turn it into hydrogen.
Electrolyzer.
And then we have the full system on board, and we produce our own hydrogen from seawater.
Wow.
As a result, we've proven we can do it in 6 months, and we can use hydrogen and high altitude kites.
You're flying kites from the boat.
That's right. And a kite is so much more efficient than a sail. Somehow we got fascinated by the Greek, Egyptian, Roman sails, and we've been using ever since. But in the Pacific cultures, there was already a large experience over the past 6,000 years with kites. Kites is so much more efficient.
I didn't know that. So the purpose is for the boat to demonstrate that it could go around the world without any fossil fuels.
That was the beginning. That was the second phase as well, because we wanted to go faster. The third phase is our phase today, is that we can actually not only do it, but we can have the supply chain to make the boats extremely competitive. And of course, it's again not just about the technology. It's what's your business model? Who are you providing a service?
Who's going to pay for that? Yeah, in other words.
So the key is, well, I would like to turn your question around. It's not about who's going to pay.
Okay.
Who's going to make more money with what we offer? Because you can only pay when you have a revenue. So to me, the question is who's going to pay is not relevant for me. To me, the relevant question is who can generate so much more value with our proposition that they will be so happy to buy the boat. And to me, this is again where we go back to the original business models that we were designing already 30, 40 years ago. What more do you offer? If you offer a beer, or do you offer a beer with a cultural product? People are willing to pay for a cultural product
The
because
added
they
value.
Exactly. So by having the opportunity, now I need to define what is the added value. And one of the key added values of a ship is that every ship is a data farm. Okay. There's no data available on the sea. If you take all data from all supercomputers from all around the world, 99.9% is about people, land, and air. 0.1% is about the sea. If you don't have information about the sea, you don't have a strategy about the sea. So my first focus is every boat becomes a data farm. We are farming data. We're collecting the data we need.
Collecting data about the sea, the ocean.
About everything related to the sea. Give you an example. Cartography. There is no map. There's no 3D map of the seas around Taiwan. Can you imagine?
Really? I didn't know that. I thought there must
there's
be some...
Well, you have a shore map. You have a surface map. You have currents that are being measured. But you don't have the bottom of the sea of the 200 economic exclusive zone of Taiwan mapped. Now, if you don't have a map, what do you have? I mean, try to go somewhere without a map. And so what I realized is that the first big gap that we have is we have no information. So first job, every boat becomes a data farm. We're not mining data because there is no data, so we need to farm data. Second, every boat becomes, at the same time, an energy mix, a novel energy mix. I mean, when we look at Thai Power and the challenges they have to supply energy, unfortunately, everyone looks at wind, liquid gas, solar, nuclear, but then Taiwan decided not to do nuclear, so you don't have it anymore. That's petroleum, that's coal. So what are you using? And I'm saying, well, the mix of the future will be totally different because there is innovation. I can have 24 hours a day wind power thanks to a kite. A kite that goes to 200, 300 meters altitude.
Oh, so there's always wind at that altitude.
Always. Because if there's no wind at 200, you go to 250. If there's no wind at 250, you go to 300. But you will always have wind. It's impossible to have no wind. The problem is that a windmill is stationary and you can't move it to where the wind is. The wind must come where you are.
That's why a kite is better.
So a kite can give me wind power 24 hours a day, all year round. Now, that's a game changer. Of course, to operate that, I need AI. I need robotics, because no one is going to hang there and pull the strings all day and all night. So it is really the integration of AI and robotics that allows me to have an unlimited source of wind power from 200, 300, 400 meters altitude. Now, if I have wind power all the time, I'm going to have excess wind power. Then I produce hydrogen, and we're at the sea, so the best way to produce hydrogen is simply taking seawater. Since you need on a boat to desalinate, because you need drinking water, water for showers and cooking, so you already have a desalination system on board. So the steps to make then the hydrogen is very small. But if I'm making hydrogen, I also have pure oxygen, because we always say that we're making hydrogen. Yes, but you're actually making hydrogen and oxygen.
Right.
So if I have oxygen, I capture the oxygen, and I can now make nitrox bottles on my boat, means that high oxygen diving bottles, so I can dive at 100 meter deep, because that is the nitrox system. Or if people are very tired, I can put them into oxygen bar, and they can breathe oxygen and feel much better, energized. So what I'm always looking for with these little examples is, where is the extra cash? Where is the extra revenue?
Right.
And you need, on the other hand, a main revenue. And the boat's main revenue for the first few years will be hospital boats.
And the oxygen comes in handy for hospitals.
Hospitals need a lot of oxygen. I mean, so I think the capacity to think in a complex system is the capacity to identify cash flows, multiple cash flows. That's how you finance something that is new, that is considered risky. But if I can have multiple cash flows, then I can convince my clients that actually it's not such a big risk.
Right. So for Porima, your goal is to build a supply chain here in Taiwan.
We will have to have on first hand the design of the ship, design of the technologies. Second, you need to put up the supply chain. And third, you will need to have all around the world localized production centers.
Right.
So we don't think we will produce 1,000 ships in Taiwan, but we will produce the technology inputs for 10,000 ships built around the world.
So the sort of the blue map for the ship and to be scaled up in the future.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think you also mentioned that you will bring the ship to the Osaka World Expo next year. What's the plan for the boat to do in Osaka?
Well, we were in Osaka, and then we left from Osaka with the ship to Dubai World Expo. So we were the closing event of the Dubai Expo.
Oh.
And so the Osaka World Expo decided that we are their ambassadors, because we sailed straight from Osaka to Dubai, and we are actually coming back to Osaka for the World Expo. And for us, it's a phoenix that's coming back. It's a different boat, because it's the second edition that left Osaka and will come back the third edition with, for example, an interior completely made out of bamboo. Taiwan is a marvelous supplier of bamboo, and Taiwan has some of the greatest bamboo masters, grandmasters of bamboo. So we should not only have the high tech, we should have the high touch. And the bamboo interior will give a complete new impression about how a ship looks like. It's not shiny with inox. It is clear and light because of the bamboo.
Right. Yeah, I think bamboo is a really great idea, and compostable as well. And so as we record this episode, we are going to see the opening of COP29 in Azerbaijan very soon. But unfortunately, when we air this episode, COP29 will already be concluded. But if you were going to be one of the organizers for a COP, what do you think a COP today would need? The UNFCCC climate conference, what's your observation of the COPs now? And in your idea, what kind of role should a COP play right now?
Let me turn the question around, if you permit me.
Let's see.
If you go to a meeting 3 times and you take a good pause between each meeting to reflect on what was discussed in the first meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting, if after the third meeting you don't come to a positive and clear conclusion on what to do, will you go to the fourth meeting?
Probably not.
Exactly. So the first thing we should do, maybe we should try, is to announce that we cancel COP. Because if you don't announce you're canceling COP, and I'm not a Trump guy, but I am just saying that it doesn't make sense to meet 29 times and have the climate change situation worsen all the time. That means something isn't working.
Yeah, something's wrong.
And so to me, first of all, the process that we're using is not leading to results. So should we have more of the same process or should we change the process? To me, first of all, we need to agree on changing the process.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean we do not have a need for consultation. It means we have a need for a different format of consultation. And if you analyze the problems, it always boils down to one thing: money. It's too expensive, we don't have the capital. Well, that means you don't have a good business plan. Because if it is urgent to change the climate for the better instead of now going for the worse, then you need to think about the business plans. And the business plans will motivate industry, will motivate governments in order to create a new competitive environment. Because the environment today is one where the cheapest on the market is the one who will gain. Now, if I have to be the cheapest and I have to compete against Bangladesh in textiles, I can't pay my workers a high salary, I can't take care of the environment, and I probably will not pay many taxes because otherwise I can't beat Bangladesh. So the result is that we have a business model that is obliging everyone to be competitive by being cheap.
Yeah, it's race to the bottom.
Taiwan has already decided it doesn't want to follow that strategy anymore. Taiwan has clearly decided it will let go many industries because they are just not giving value. Even China has decided that, why should we be the producer of cotton clothing for cheap outlets like Zara and Hennes and Mauritz, and we get the blame for being the polluters? Why don't you go somewhere else? Mm-hmm. And of course, another consideration is China just doesn't have the water to irrigate all the cotton fields anymore. And if it needs water, it should use the water for something else. So with all these considerations, I think it is very important we accept that unless the business model is changed, you're not going to have climate change mitigated.
I agree with you. I really think the model of COPs should really be revamped, and the people who are behind COPs, if they had the entrepreneurial mind like yours, so close to yours, they should really give an overhaul to this business model because it obviously isn't working, right?
If we were saying, okay, we need to reach the 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, the latest IPCC report says we will reach 3.8. So we have, in America, we say we've goofed up. I mean, it's really a mess what we've made out of it. If you want to correct it, you need a crisis manager. You need someone who manages the crisis. You don't meet for 2 weeks in plush hotels in order to figure out how to get it reversed. What we need is a lot of science. We need, but not the science to tell us that we have climate change. We've heard that before. I heard in 85.
But what to do?
But what are the technologies we can use today? And what are the business models that can work tomorrow? I give you one example. Mushrooms. We have not enough food in the world. There's poverty in the world. There is malnutrition in the world. But now we have the science to do the genetic modification of rice, so rice will have a very short straw.
Okay.
Because we observe that rice straw is in such abundance that people burn it and it creates climate change. My position is, how could we be so stupid? In China for the past 600 years, all rice straw is used as a substrate to farm straw mushrooms.
Oh.
The straw mushrooms avoid the rotting of the straw, which is emitting methane gas, and it gives you food. And it just generates CO2. But the CO2 you're generating is a vegetable CO2, vegetable-based CO2, because it comes from the plant. And next time you farm, it is reabsorbed in the growth of the rice. So to me, this is the kind of simplification. But these are the choices. Do you want to go for GMO rice? Or do you want to go for rice and mushrooms? And if I go for rice and mushrooms, then the waste of the rice is now also a feed for my chicken. And there we go again. So I can solve food and nutrition issues while I'm tackling methane emissions. And there is where we need to have the new business models. If you let entrepreneurs loose at that, and you find 1,000 solutions, which we can easily find, then you change the business model, you change reality. And then funding is not about how do we mitigate the problem of rising sea levels. Then the funding is how do we get enough capital to the entrepreneurs so they can roll out their businesses. That's the shift we require. And in that sense, I think having someone like Trump or someone like Elon Musk or someone of that caliber, we may dislike many things that they represent, and we may even be a bit jealous about who they are and what they can do. But unless we have someone rocking the boat, we're going to have COP30, COP31, COP32, COP33, and we're all going to celebrate that we announce that in 2050 we'll be net zero. This is not the future I want to give to my kids.
Achieving anything. So I think, in other words, we have to all have entrepreneurial minds and have the guts to rethink a lot of the business models. And I think you brought the point that Taiwan is home to a lot of really advanced and good innovation. We have engineers and capabilities of making things. And so I think starting from the example of Porima, if we could help launch this ship and, show the people that a completely different model of shipping is possible and it can be viable and competitive, then maybe this is going to be the only invention that revamps the model, but it's just going to be one of many.
It is one of many, and what we wish really is that we create a hub for entrepreneurship. But a hub for entrepreneurship also requires a change in educational system. And this is a big challenge. We are too much education today is that we consider the brains of the kids empty, which we have to fill up. We're filling too much garbage in there. So we are in need of really creating amongst the kids of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, we need to create the culture of initiative, of creativity, to be maintained, because they all have it when they're small. But we need to maintain it, and we need to secure that they have the self-confidence to go on. Yeah. And that is what I've learned, and I was so privileged with my mother. My mother, when I had all my crazy ideas, she celebrated them. She never told me that I was nuts and that this is not possible. She always told me that, well, if you think this is great to do, well, just do it. Go ahead and do it. And the challenge is in the doing. So if we can tackle education and have a culture of entrepreneurship, but then as a society we create this urge to say that we were unable to solve all these issues. Now you will have the platforms to solve those issues. And the capital is there and the freedom to move is there. Then I think we'll make a very rapid transition towards a society that will not be blocked by climate change.
Right. Well, I think the education problem is a very big one, and maybe it warrants another 2 or 3 episodes to talk about education. But I do appreciate your time with us today. I think I feel very inspired. And I also hope to see success with the Porima project very soon.
Well, I hope to welcome you on the boat probably in May or June next year in Kaohsiung. So keep your eyes open. I'll ask my team to make certain you can be on the boat when we get in the water the first time.
Good. I would love that.
Do a podcast on the boat.
Right. Yeah, do a podcast there. But do I have to spend 3 months on the boat?
No. We will just keep you in port.
Good. So thank you very much for your time today in the studio, Gunter.
Thank you. Thanks for
having me. Such a pleasure. Right. So that wraps up today's episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review or shoot us an email. To read more in-depth reports on sustainability and climate change, please visit CommonWealth English website. Our next episode will be available December 24th. This show is produced and edited by Weiru Wang and Yayuan Zhang. I'm your host, Liu Guangyin. Follow Taiwanology wherever you get your podcasts. Talk to you soon.